The cursor blinked like a heartbeat on Parker's screen, mocking him in the dead of night. One click, that's all it took to unravel the fragile web of his secrets. Hurling a confession meant for a forgotten journal straight into the inbox of the man who held his future in his hands. In that instant, as the send button sealed his fate, Parker felt the world tilt, his chest tightening with the terror of exposure, knowing that tomorrow's dawn would bring not just shame, but the terrifying possibility of being truly seen for the first time. Parker had always been the invisible one in the lecture hall at Emerson University, tucked into the back row of Professor Elias Grant's American Literature seminar, his notebook a shield against the professor's piercing gaze. At 21, with the fresh-faced uncertainty of a junior transfer student from a small town in Ohio, Parker blended into the sea of ambitious East Coast kids, his Midwestern politeness a quiet armor. But Elias God, even thinking his name sent a shiver through him, was different. 38. With the kind of quiet authority that came from years of poring over Faulkner and Whitman in dimly lit libraries. Elias was the embodiment of everything Parker yearned for, intellectual fire wrapped in understated elegance. His salt and pepper hair catching the light like frost on autumn leaves. His voice a steady baritone that could unravel sonnets or steady a room full of restless undergrads. It started innocently enough, or so Parker told himself in the sleepless hours before that fateful email. Emerson's campus in Boston buzzed with the crisp energy of fall leaves crunching underfoot on the commons, the distant hum of the T train underscoring late-night cram sessions. Parker had arrived that September fleeing the suffocating normalcy of his hometown, where fitting in meant burying his attractions under layers of football games and church youth groups. Here, in the liberal haze of academia, he dared to breathe a little freer. Elias's class was his anchor, a weekly ritual where words like desire and identity weren't just abstract. They pulsed with possibility. Parker found himself lingering after lectures, fabricating questions about Frost's metaphors just to catch a glimpse of Elias's half-smile, the way his eyes crinkled with genuine curiosity. But secrets have a way of festering. Late one Tuesday, fueled by too much coffee and the isolation of his off-campus apartment, a cramped walk-up in Alston shared with two straight-laced roommates who blasted EDM until Don, Parker poured his soul into a digital confessional. It was meant to be private, a draft in his personal drive titled Untitled_Ramblings. Docs, where he dissected his feelings like one of Elias's essays, the ache of watching Elias gesture passionately at the blackboard, the forbidden daydreams of shared coffees turning into something deeper, the terror of being queer in a world that still whispered judgments even in progressive bubbles. Professor Grant, he'd written, the words tumbling out raw and unfiltered. You make me want to be brave, to claim the parts of myself I've hidden since I was 16. Sneaking glances at boys in the locker room while pretending to tie my shoes. Your voice in that room today discussing Whitman's Song of Myself, it felt like you were speaking directly to the boy I am. The one who loves fiercely but fears even more. Exhaustion blurred the lines. Homework was due by midnight, a 10-page analysis on identity in modernist prose. Parker, bleary-eyed, attached what he thought was the polished PDF. Instead, his trembling fingers selected the wrong file, the love letter, disguised in his mind as just another assignment. The subject line, Lit. 301 Final Draft, Parker Ellis. He hit send without a second glance, collapsing into bed as the clock struck 12. The city's sirens wailing like a premonition. Morning came too soon, sunlight slicing through the blinds like accusations. Parker's phone buzzed on his nightstand, the notification chime yanking him from a dream where Elias read his words aloud to the class. Laughter echoing off the walls. Heart slamming. He fumbled for the device. An email from Egrant at Emerson. EDU. Parker received your submission. Let's discuss in office hours this afternoon. Prof. G. The words blurred. Office hours. Discuss. Parker's stomach churned, a cold sweat breaking across his skin. He replayed the night in frantic fragments, the attachment. The title. Oh God. The title. Rushing to his laptop, he logged into the class portal. His breath shallow. There it was, downloaded for grading. He clicked open the file, and the blood drained from his face. Page after page of unedited vulnerability stared back at him. I imagine what it would be like to tell you over coffee at that cafe on Newberry Street. Your laugh cutting through my nerves like sunlight through fog. But I'm just your student. A ghost in your class. And this feeling. It's a fire I can't afford to let burn. Panic clawed at him. Delete. Too late, the server had it. Pretend it was a joke. Elias wasn't the type for pranks. His reputation preceded him as the professor who championed authenticity, who once halted a lecture to affirm a student's coming-out story mid-discussion. No, this was real. And Parker was exposed. Raw as an open wound. He paced the tiny kitchen, the scent of burnt toast from his roommate's forgotten breakfast turning his gut. What if Elias reported him? Harassment? Expulsion? Or worse, what if he pitted him? That soft, knowing look in his eyes turning Parker into just another tragic case study. By noon, the campus felt like a minefield. Parker skipped his sociology lecture, ducking into the library's third-floor stacks, where the musty smell of old books offered temporary sanctuary. He buried himself in a corner corral, staring at his reflection in the darkened computer screen, disheveled hair, shadows under his eyes, the faint stubble he hadn't bothered to shave. Who was this boy who'd dared to dream? Back home, he'd mastered invisibility, smiling through family dinners where Dad preached traditional values. Mom fretted over his eligible female classmates. Coming to Boston was supposed to be rebirth. But here he was, teetering on the edge of self-destruction. The clock ticked toward 3 p.m. Elias's office was in the English department's creaky Victorian building, a warren of narrow halls lined with faded posters of literary greats. Parker arrived early, palms slick, rehearsing lies, a hack, a virus, anything but the truth. The door was ajar. Elias's voice murmuring on a call something about a conference panel on queer narratives in 20th century fiction. Parker's heart stuttered. Queer narratives. As if the universe conspired. Come in. Parker. Elias called. Before he could knock. The voice was calm, inviting no trace of anger. Parker pushed the door open, the hinges creaking like his resolve. Elias sat behind a desk piled with manuscripts, his button-down sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms dusted with dark hair. Up close, he was even more disarming, laugh lines etched around his eyes, a wedding band glinting on his left hand. No. Wait. Parker blinked. It was gone. Or had it always been absent? Paranoia. He chided himself. Sit. Elias said, gesturing to the worn armchair opposite. His gaze was steady, not probing, but present in a way that made Parker's skin prickle. I read your submission. Parker's throat closed. Professor, IIT's not what you think. I attached the wrong file. It was private. Stupid ramblings. I swear I'll rewrite the paper. Elias held up a hand. The gesture gentle but firm. Parker, breathe. He leaned forward, elbows on the desk, his expression softening into something achingly human. First, the homework. It's brilliant, even without the addendum. Your analysis of Woolf's stream of consciousness as a metaphor for suppressed identity, it's insightful. But that's not why I asked you here. The air thickened. Parker gripped the armrests, knuckles white. Then, why? Elias exhaled slowly. as if weighing worlds. Because what you wrote after, it moved me, not as your professor, but as someone who's been where you are. The fear, the fire you described, it's familiar. He paused, his voice dropping. I'm gay, Parker. Have been since I was your age. Fumbling through my own confessions in undergrad. And that letter, it wasn't a mistake. It was courage. The words hung, shattering the silence. Parker's vision swam, relief and terror crashing like waves. Courage, or catastrophe. In that moment, the room shrank to just the two of them, student and mentor. Dreamer and Guadi, on the precipice of a truth that could redefine everything. But as Elias's eyes met his, warm with unspoken invitation, Parker wondered if this was the beginning of healing, or the spark that would burn it all down. Weeks blurred into a tentative rhythm after that office hour revelation. Each class a tightrope walk of stolen glances and loaded silences. Parker threw himself into revisions, his essays now laced with a newfound boldness, echoing the vulnerability he'd accidentally bared. Elias graded with marginal notes that felt like lifelines. This resonates. Dig deeper into your own voice here. No one else noticed the shift. To the seminar's chattering clique, Parker was still the quiet Ohio boy, scribbling furiously while they debated brunch spots. But beneath the surface, a current stirred, electric and uncharted. Elias, for his part, treaded carefully a masterclass in boundaries. He extended office hours to Parker alone, framing them as mentorship sessions, where discussions veered from Hemingway's icebergs to the iceberg of personal concealment. Literature teaches us to hide in plain sight, Elias said one rainy afternoon, the patter against the window pane mirroring Parker's pulse. But real life, it demands we emerge. He shared fragments of his own story then, a conservative upbringing in rural Vermont, a clandestine first love with a debate team rival that ended in heartbreak and a hasty retreat to academia's safer shores. I didn't come out until grad school, Elias confessed, his fingers tracing the spine of a dog-eared Baldwin novel. By then, I'd built walls so high, I almost forgot how to climb them. Parker absorbed it all, hungering for more, the timbre of Elias's laugh when he recounted a disastrous coming-out dinner with his sister, the way his brow furrowed over Parker's drafts, challenging him to unearth truths he'd long buried. In those hours, the professor's office became a sanctuary, walls lined with books that whispered permission, Ginsberg's howls, Lord's audits of the self. Yet, with every shared confidence, the air grew heavier, charged with the unspoken. Parker's dreams turned vivid, Elias's hand brushing his in a hypothetical cafe, the scent of his wool sweater mingling with rain-dampened streets. Waking, shame gnawed at him. This was no fairy tale. Elias was his professor, a decade plus his senior, navigating tenure tracks and university policies that loomed like storm clouds. Fall deepened, Boston's foliage igniting in defiant reds and golds, a stark contrast to the gray creeping into Parker's doubts. His roommates, oblivious as ever, dragged him to Fenway for a Red Sox game, where the crack of bats and roar of crowds drowned his thoughts temporarily. But solitude brought them roaring back. One night, scrolling through his phone in the glow of string lights, Parker stumbled upon an old photo from home, him at 17, arms slung awkwardly around his high school best friend, eyes averted from the camera. That boy had vanished under layers of pretense. But Elias's words echoed, emerge. Emboldened, Parker drafted an email, not a love letter this time, but an invitation. Professor Grant, would you grab coffee after Thursday's class to discuss my thesis idea? Parker. The reply came swift, the thinking cup. For PM. Looking forward. E. Thursday arrived like a held breath. The lecture on desire in Dickinson's letters felt prophetic. Elias's voice weaving through the room like smoke. She wrote of volcanoes beneath the soil. He said, eyes lingering a beat too long on Parker. Class ended in a flurry of zipped bags. Parker lingered, heart hammering, until the hall emptied. Then, the walk to Newberry Street, crisp air nipping at his cheeks. The city's pulse quickening his own. The thinking cup buzzed with afterwork chatter. The aroma of fresh brews a comforting haze. Elias was already there. 2 steaming mugs on the small table. His coat draped over the chair like an afterthought. You made it, Elias said, sliding a latte Parker's way extra foam. Just how he'd mentioned in passing once. The gesture undid him. A quiet intimacy that spoke volumes. They talked for hours. The cafe's windows fogging with laughter and steam. Thesis ideas flowed into personal tangents. Parker's Ohio roots. The sting of his father's offhand jokes about that gay agenda stuff on TV. Elias's Vermont winters. Skating on frozen ponds with a father who prized stoicism over sentiment. He never knew, Elias admitted, stirring his black coffee absently. Not fully. Some doors stay cracked. Not flung wide. The vulnerability in his voice cracked something in Parkera Dam against his own flood. As dusk fell, streetlights flickering to life, Elias walked him to the T-station. The platform hummed with commuters, but time slowed between them. Us talking like this, Parker ventured, words tumbling before courage fled. It means everything. You're the first person who's made me feel like my story matters. Elias stopped, the train's rumble underscoring the moment. His hand hovered, then settled lightly on Parker's shoulder warm. Steady. It does matter. Parker. You matter. The touch lingered a second too long. Eyes locking in a gaze that bridged the gap between mentor and man. Then, the train screeched in, doors hissing open like a sigh. Parker rode home in a daze. The city's lights streaking past like shooting stars. That night, sleep evaded him, his mind replaying the weight of Elias's hand, the promise in his eyes. But dawn brought clarity's edge, lines blurred. Risks mounted. Whispers in the department about that intense Grant kid. A colleague's casual probe into Elias's extra hours. Parker pushed it down, focusing on the glow, the first real connection in years. Yet, as November's chill deepened, he sensed the gathering storm, the inevitable clash of worlds where desire met duty. Thanksgiving loomed. A siren called back to Ohio's turkey intention table. Parker delayed his ticket, citing finals prep, but the pull of family gnawed. Elias, sensing the drift, suggested a pre-holiday walk along the Charles River. Clear your head, he emailed. The Esplanade's magic this time of year. They met at sunset. The river a ribbon of molten gold. Joggers and dogwalkers dotting the path. Conversation meandered, gratitude for small mercies. The ache of estranged kin. My folks still think I'm finding myself through books. Parker joked, kicking a pebble into the water. If only they knew it's more like finding you. Elias chuckled, but his eyes held a shadow. Flattery from a star pupil. But Parker, be careful with that heart of yours. Mine's been broken enough to know the cost. The words landed like frost, cooling the warmth. They parted with a hug brief. Brotherly, but Parker's pulse thundered. Back in his apartment, he journaled furiously. Words spilling, the thrill, the fear, the dawning realization that this wasn't infatuation. It was love, tentative and terrifying. Finals week descended like a blizzard, burying Parker in all-nighters and Elias in grading marathons. Their paths crossed in stolen moments, a nod in the hallway, an encouraging text about a strong exam response. Then, the holiday exodus hit. Parker boarded the bus to Ohio, the skyline shrinking in the rearview, a hollow ache settling in his chest. Home was a minefield. Mom's probing questions over pie. Dad's Fox News drone in the living room. Any girls on the horizon? Son, his father asked one night, remote in hand. Parker's smile was practiced. Not yet. Dad. School's keeping me busy. But inside, Elias's face flickered, his quiet strength a beacon against the room's beige conformity. The weeks stretched eternal. Phone silence amplifying doubts. Had the distance revealed the folly? On the eve of return, a text pinged, survive the turkey. Safe travels back. Coffee when you're settled. Relief flooded him. Warm as hearthfire. Boston welcomed him with sleet-slick streets. The promise of renewal. Their reunion at the cafe was charged, stories swapped. Hands brushing over shared scones. Missed this, Elias murmured. Unprompted. Me too, Parker replied. Voice steady for the first time. Winter quarter beckoned. But so did temptation's pull. A department holiday party loomed. Black tie optional. Faculty and grads mingling under twinkling lights. Parker wrangled an invite as Elias's research assistant. Nerves jangling like sleigh bells. The venue, a grand hall in Beacon Hill, glittered with champagne flutes and whispered alliances. Elias arrived sharp. Navy suit hugging his frame. A rare looseness in his posture from the open bar. You clean up well, he teased. Clinking glasses. Parker flushed. The room's hum fading. They danced around small talk, colleagues' gossip. A tipsy dean quoting Eliot until a slow song crooned. The floor clearing for swaying couples. Elias extended a hand. Dance. The world narrowed to the press of bodies. Elias's palm warm against his back. The scent of his cologne cedar and citrus intoxicating. No words. Just rhythm and revelation. As the song faded, Elias pulled back slightly. Eyes searching. This is dangerous. Parker. You know that. I know, he whispered. But it's worth it. In that admission, the dam cracked further. Emotions cascading unchecked. Spring thawed the frost, but not the tension coiling between them. Parker's days filled with advanced seminars and a budding campus queer alliance, where he finally voiced his story in halting group shares omitting Elias. Of course, but feeling the weight lift with each word. Elias, meanwhile, buried himself in a book proposal. Late nights in his Back Bay apartment yielding pages on narratives of concealment. Their coffees evolved into dinners, professional development. Elias insisted, choosing quiet bistros off the beaten path. Over plates of pasta in the North End. They dissected lives, Parker's dreams of grad school and creative writing. Elias's regrets over a stalled novel from his 20s. Pinned in the shadow of a bad breakup. Yet, the undercurrent surged. Touches lingered at knee brush under tables. Fingers grazing when passing the salt. Parker's journal brimmed with poetry now. Verses aching for release, your voice. A compass in my fog / pointing north to a self I almost know. He read them aloud one evening. Post-dinner stroll along the harbor. The city lights dancing on waves. Elias listened. Rapt. Then cupped Parker's cheek in the lamplight. Beautiful. And brave. The kiss followed like inevitability, soft. Tentative. Tasting of Chianti and salt air. Time suspended. The world a distant hum. When they parted. Breathless. Elias's forehead rested against his. We can't pretend this isn't happening. Then don't. Parker urged. Heart soaring. They navigated the new terrain with whispered rules, discretion above all. No campus displays. This as their secret harbor. Stolen weekends emerged Elias's apartment. A sunlit haven of exposed brick and overflowing bookshelves. Mornings tangled in sheets. Afternoons debating philosophy over brunch. Parker bloomed under the attention. His essays sharper, his alliance presentations fiercer. "You've changed me," he told Elias one lazy Sunday, tracing patterns on his chest. "Made me believe in happy endings." Elias smiled, but shadows flickered. Endings aren't the point. Love. It's the living. Doubt crept in gradients. A colleague's offhand remark at a faculty mixer, "Grant's got a protege. Watch out, kid. He's a heartbreaker," stung like shrapnel. Parker laughed it off. But seeds of insecurity rooted. Who was he to Elias? Muse or momentary escape from 10 years' grind? And Elias's silences grew. Phone calls cut short by department meetings. Parker filled the gaps with overanalysis, replaying conversations for hidden barbs. Summer beckoned. A cruel interlude. Parker landed an internship at a Boston lit mag. Elias a fellowship in New York for archival research on queer poets. Separation loomed. 2 months of video calls and aching goodbyes. At the train station, arms wrapped tight, Elias murmured, "Write me letters. Real ones. Like your wolf paper." "I will," Parker promised, the platform blurring through tears. New York swallowed Elias. His updates sporadic photos of the Strand's labyrinthine aisles. Snippets of autumn lines that reminded him of home. Parker threw himself into work. The internship's deadline's a distraction from the void. But loneliness amplified cracks. Late-night calls where Elias's voice strained. Mentions of old friends from grad school days. Paranoia whispered reconnections. Regrets. One humid July evening, after a garbled connection, Parker snapped, "Are you pulling away? Is this too much?" Silence stretched. Then Elias's sigh. "It's not you. It's the world. Parker. The university's ethics code. My career tenure reviews next year. And you. You're just starting. I won't be the reason you falter." The words gutted him. So what? We hide forever. Or end it now. "No," Elias said fiercely. "We fight for it. But smartly." Reassurance patched the fracture. But trust frayed. Parker confided in his alliance mentor, a grad student named Really Non-Binary, wise beyond years who listened without judgment. "Power dynamics are real," Riley warned gently. "Make sure it's equal. Not just stolen moments." Fall quarter roared back. Reunions electric. They carved out time weekend getaways to Cape Cod, where dunes muffled worries. Waves erasing footprints. There, under star-pricked skies, Parker voiced his deepest fear. What if I'm just your youth? The reminder of what you lost. Elias pulled him close. Bonfire crackling. "You're mine now? Parker. The man who makes me remember why I teach to witness growth. To love without armor." The words healed. But storms brewed beyond their bubble. Whispers escalated, a TA spotting them at a cafe. Too close. An anonymous tip to the department chair about inappropriate favoritism. Elias's mood darkened. Meetings multiplying. Parker, sensing the shift, doubled down surprise visits with takeout. Love notes tucked into return papers. But pressure mounted. A vice on their joy. One crisp October night, after a tense faculty event where Elias dodged questions about his personal life, they argued in the apartment. "You're shutting me out," Parker accused, voice cracking. "I'm protecting us." Elias shot back, pacing. One slip, and it's over for both. The door slammed behind Parker. Streets slick with rain. He wandered the common, sobs mingling with downpour. The city's indifference a mirror to his isolation. Hours later, a text, "Come back. Please." Reconciliation was raw apologies. Embraces. Promises to seek counseling through the university's LGBTQ center. They emerged fragile but forged stronger. Attending sessions together under pseudonyms. unpacking imbalances with a therapist's steady hand. This can work, she affirmed, with intention. Winter holidays tested resolve. Parker flew to Ohio, armed with half-truths. Elias to Vermont, facing family ghosts. Post-Christmas, they met in Boston for New Year's. Fireworks bursting over the harbor like defiant stars. To us, Elias toasted. Champagne bubbling. To be coming, Parker echoed. But as snow blanketed the city, a letter arrived, tenure committee feedback, glowing but flagged for perceived conflicts of interest. Elias paled reading it. They know something. Panic surged. Parker rallied. We face it together. Yet, the gauntlet through investigation whispers. Mandatory meetings. Their haven cracked. Love aflame flickering in wind. The investigation unfolded like a slow unraveling. Each email from the dean a thread pulled loose from the tapestry of their lives. Elias faced it with stoic grace. His office hours halved. Syllabus amended to underscore professional conduct. Parker watched from afar. The seminar, now a chasm, seats between them enforced by invisible lines. Questions answered in clipped tones. Whispers snaked through halls. Heard grants in hot water over that Ellis kid. Parker's stomach knotted at every glance. The weight of scrutiny crushing his spirit. He channeled it into action, diving deeper into the Queer Alliance. Organizing a panel on mentorship and boundaries in academia. Riley co-hosted. Their bond a lifeline amid the storm. You're stronger than this, Riley said post-event. Over late-night falafel. But don't lose yourself fighting shadows. Nights alone. Parker paced his apartment. The roommate's oblivious chatter a grating backdrop. He wrote feverish letters to Elias. Sealed and unsent. Pouring out the terror of loss. Without you, I'm adrift again. The boy from Ohio clawing at walls. Elias's responses came via burner app. Cryptic but tender. Hold fast. We're more than this moment. Spring break offered respite. A road trip to Provincetown with Alliance friends, rainbow flags fluttering. Drag brunches pulsing with laughter. Parker danced under disco lights. But his heart tugged northward. To Elias buried in legal consults. A midnight call bridged the miles. I love you, Elias whispered. Voice thick. This fight. It's for us. Renewed. Parker returned to campus firebrand. His thesis proposal, a memoir on queer awakening through literature, garnering advisor praise. Elias reviewed drafts covertly. Notes smuggled in library drops. Your voice sings. Proud. The gesture fueled him. A reminder of stakes. But cracks widened. Elias withdrew, canceling dinners with prep excuses. Parker confronted him in a shadowed quad corner. Rain misting their faces. You're fading on me. Elias's eyes glistened. I'm scared. Parker. For you, expulsion risks. Your record. For my career's suicide at 40. What if we can't win? Then we redefine victory. Parker pleaded. Not perfection, but persistence. The words hung. A fragile bridge. They recommitted weekly check-ins at neutral spots. Therapy doubled. Yet, isolation gnawed. Parker's grades slipped. Sleep evaded. One dawn, staring at ceiling cracks, he penned a real letter, slipping it under Elias's door. You taught me emergence. Don't make me retreat now. Elias's reply was a knock that evening. Arms enveloping. Never. Summer scorched Boston. Internships resuming. Parker edited at the Lit Mag. Elias guest lectured remotely. Distance bred clarity. They videoed daily. Faces filling screens with mundane magic. Elias cooking pasta. Parker reading aloud drafts. This is sustainable, Elias said one night. Pixels softening his fatigue. Us. Like this. But autumn brought the hammer, Formal inquiry. Dean's office. Sterile and accusatory. Relationship with student. Elias denied. Lawyer at side ethics forbade admission. Parker. Summoned separately. Stonewalled. Mentorship only. Lies tasted bitter. Solidarity their shield. The toll mounted. Elias aged in months, lines deepening. Spark dimming. Parker sought solace in running. Pounding pavements till lungs burned. Purging fear. Alliance vigils for queer rights grounded him. Chants echoing his resolve. Climax brewed in November. Leave skeletal. Anonymous email to Parker. Your prof's a predator. Break it off, or we go public. Attached, blurry cafe photo. Hands linked. Terror gripped blackmail. Saboteur. He raced to Elias. Bursting into the apartment mid-rant. Someone knows. Threatens exposure. Elias paled. Scanning the image. My ex-mark. From New York. Jealous. Bitter after our split last year. He must have tailed me. Rage. Then resolve. We confront him. Elias hesitated. Dangerous. Together. They drove to NYC. Tension thick as fog. Mark's loft. East Village confrontation explosive. You think you can scare us? Elias thundered. Parker at his flank. We're done hiding. Mark sneered, but faltered under fire-admitting envy. Not malice. He left me for. Whatever this is. Apology extracted. Deletion promised. Relief washed back to Boston. But scars lingered. That was close. Parker breathed. Curled against Elias. Too close. Elias agreed. Maybe. Time apart. To heal. The suggestion gutted. No. Hear me out. Not end. Pause. You finish senior year strong. I navigate tenure. Then. Free and clear. Tears stung. Promise. Swear it. Winter wrapped them in bittersweet farewells, last dinners. Fervent nights. Graduation loomed. A horizon of possibility laced with pain. Parker walked the stage in May. Cap tassel swaying. Elias in the crowd. Applause thunderous. Post-ceremony. Hidden alcove embrace, proud beyond words. Then, departing Parker to a fellowship in San Francisco. Elias staying rooted. Letters. Elias echoed. Voice breaking. And visits. Airport goodbye, crushed hug eternal. Tears unchecked. Plane ascending. Boston shrinking. Parker clutched Elias's parting gift, inscribed Baldwin, for the fire that endures. West Coast welcomed foggy hills. Vibrant queer scene. Parker thrived. Memoir draft soaring. But nights ached with absence. Emails bridged, Elias's tenure granted. With caveats. Celebrations solitary. Months blurred on year mark. Surprise visit. Elias at SFO. Grin wide. Missed my muse. Reunion ignited San Francisco dates. Alcatraz echoes of freedom. But growth whispered changes, Parker's independence blooming. Elias's caution softening. Thanksgiving. Cross-country flight. Parker's family met Elias as colleague friend, awkward but accepted. Dad's gruff, not a victory. Vermont followed. Elias's sister embracing warmly. About time you brought someone home. New Year's. Back in Boston. Snow-dusted harbor. What now? Parker asked. Fireworks blooming. Now. Elias said. Ring box emerging simple band. Promise etched. We build. Openly. Joy cascaded. Fears dissolving. Not perfect. But human flawed. Fierce. Forward. Years wove onward. Parker's book published. Tour with Elias at readings. Joint life in a Cambridge brownstone. Adopting a rescue dog named Whitman. Challenges came family frictions. Career pivots, but they met them hand in hand. Therapy a constant. One autumn eve. Echoing their first. Riverside walk. You saved me. Parker murmured. We saved each other. Elias replied. In that truth, their story endured not fairy tale, but testament, love as journey, courage as compass, humanity as the greatest plot twist.
This brings us to the central theme of the semester, the intersection of identity and circumstance.